Good evening, good afternoon, good night. That's what AOS Coach says, isn't it? At the start of his videos. Let's do our Kruleboyz unit tiered list. But of course, thanks to all my patrons. The best way to support the channel is through Patreon. Go check it out. Also, thanks to Baron and Dice for supporting the channel. All my patrons, of course, and Wybarian. Yeah. I keep clicking the same thing. So this is what the Kruleboyz unit tier list was at the end of third. This was like my final Kruleboyz tier list video. Hobgrots were our best unit, right? Boltboy, Shaman, Gobsprak, and Snatchaboss were all S tier. A tier was Swampboss, Scumdrek, Breakaboss, Killboss on Vulture, Gnashtooth, Monstakillas, and Dagox Stablads. So some of these units were A tier just because of how cheap they were, right? So like Swamp Collar Shaman, Bolt Boys, Gobsprak, Sludge Raker were all legit good, right? The problem with Kruleboyz was never that some of our War Scrolls weren't good. We definitely had some good War Scrolls. Our problem was more like we had to take 1 million Swamp Collar Shamans, right? And we had to, our only damage, our gut rippers were terrible, right? We had no like actual frontline unit kinda, because our gut rippers weren't very good at all. And then our A tier units, some of these guys were good just because they were so cheap. So like the Vulture Boss, I think was good just because he was cheap. He didn't really do anything. He was just kind of not very expensive and like fast and flying and a monster, right? But besides that, he was like, I don't know, he was just a cheap monster. Breakaboss was good. Scumdrek was good. The Gnashtooth was just super cheap, but I think the Gnashtooth War Scroll was better in the previous edition. Dagox was good only because they were so cheap. They were 70 points and they just fit into lists really nice. And for 70 points, they got the job done for sure. Monstakillas were good, although they're much better now. Killboss was at B tier, so here's the B tier. It was Killboss, Merknob, Gutrippaz, and Killbow. So these were good situationally, right? So like the Killboss was only good if you were running like 2 units of Gutrippaz or you know, like a bunch of Gutrippaz, which probably wasn't optimal. Merknob was B tier, just like against certain matchups like Seraphon, like just like an AoE mortal wound protection against spells. Gutrippaz or Hobgrots, are we talking third or fourth? Because I'm kind of thinking third right now. I'm like reviewing the third edition where I left off a tier list, right? So in third it was definitely Hobgrots. In fourth, it's definitely Gutrippaz, no question. Hobgrots were great. I wish I could have run them as battle line in third. The army would have been much better if you just didn't have to take Gutrippaz in third at all, because they were not very good at all. And then the Killbow was B tier, just, you know, there's lots of monsters. If you're playing against lots of monsters, 2 or 3 of these is good. In fourth, it's definitely Gutrippaz. Gutrippaz are really good. And then F tier, like never take for third edition, was Kragnos. Just no synergy, still not really any synergy. Probably not F tier though, right now in fourth, but F tier in third, I think. Marshcrawler Slogoth, no longer an F tier, I'd say. And then Dagox Stablads aren't in the game anymore, which is too bad because they were never good, and now they're gone. So that makes me sad that they never had their time to shine. I am proxying these models as Monstakillas though. It's actually perfect because they have these 3 little grots, and so those 3 little grots become 3 little grots from the Monstakillas, right? I'm just going to put them in 3 different things or whatever, which is awesome. And then from there, it's like these 2 models are also going to become Monstakillas. With Dagox, actually, you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'm 3D printing like a little hellhound, like some kind of little monster that's going to go with these guys. And then bam, 2 units of Monstakillas right there. Awesome. Okay, cool. So this is what it was at the end of third. And so let's get into this for fourth edition. So these units are not, it's not even the same list because we no longer have Dagox I guess I can't delete them. And we no longer have Manox. These two are removed, so we don't have to think about them or worry about them. Okay, so let's start off with a Kilbo. Actually, we should do this like in a particular kind of order. Let's do all of our monsters first. Let's do all of our monsters, and we'll start with Kragnos. And then after that, we'll do our, like, the rest of our heroes. And then after that, it should be fine. Our War Machine can come at the very end. Cool. So, Kragnos. Okay, so first of all, these tiers aren't even right. You don't need... All you need is S, A, B, and F. And S has to be green because we're green. We are the greenest of boys. So to define my terms, S is the best. S means that you include it every time. S are all the units that when you start your list building, you're like, oh, okay, so I run these guys, right? And then I build my list after that. Unless you're trying to be like funny or janky or like do something off meta, right? But if you're like, I'm going to build the most optimal list, right? These are the units that you start with. A means that when you see them in lists, you're like, of course, these guys are awesome, but they're not quite in that auto include. So a good example from 3rd edition would have been something like a Break-a-Boss, right? It's like, well, it's not an auto include, but if you see it, you're like, sick. Break-a-Boss is so good, right? B means that there's some situational or some sort of off-meta condition where a unit is good. So a good example from last edition was the Kill Boss on foot. The Foot Boss, he was only used if you were running a whole bunch of Gut Rippers, which wasn't optimal, right? If 2 times 20 Gut Rippers was S, then the Kill Boss would also be S, right? But it's like off-meta sort of, so it's not good. And then F is just like, they're bad, and no matter what, it's always better to have something else in the list. Like, it doesn't matter, it's always better to have another thing no matter what. There is no situation where the unit is better on the table than its alternatives. It doesn't have a role, it doesn't have a niche, it doesn't have nothing like that. It's just it's just bad, right? Okay, so we'll start off with Kragnos. I think Kragnos is A tier. A or B? I always the thing with Kragnos in this edition is that being low drops is important and matters. And so if you have any kind of synergy, and like counter charge is crazy, like Kragnos got a lot better because of 3d6 counter charge. So if you can sort of like synergize some different things with him, maybe he's actually B tier. Like, it's silly. So interactions in Kruleboyz include the kill boss on Vulture with his charge, where you roll impact wounds based on the number of dice. So rolling 3 dice worth of charge. Like so the average is 10. So it means that the Vulture boss on average is dealing 5 impact mortals, which is a lot of impact mortals in this edition. Like, charging in and on average doing 5 is really good and strong. And then if you spike that, like if you're rolling, like if you get a charge roll of 14 and you're rolling 14 dice, it's supposed to be 7, but every once in a while it's going to be 9 or 10, and you're going to run into something and deal 10 mortal wounds to it, and your opponent is going to be like, derp, derp, right? And because you're rolling 3d6 and then you're rolling for 4s, like, I don't know, it feels pretty strong to me. So that's a kind of a really good interaction. The Break-a-Boss with a 3d6 charge is also really strong. Just to make sure he gets in the fight when you need to get into the fight. Even a Sludge Raker on a 3d6 charge doesn't feel too bad. Gnash Tooth on a 3d6 charge feels a lot better, right? Because then he can kind of get where he needs to be, like when he needs to be there. Like, you can sneak some stuff and then he can sort of charge in with a 3d6 charge. So that's also pretty strong. Gut Rippers with a 3d6 charge are also good, right? And then, like, if you wanted to really lean into it and do like a Marsh Crawler, so they could like run and then 3d6 charge, so they can move 11 and then 3d6 charge. Thanks for the prime. The GNGR noob. That's how I read that. Cool. So I don't know, like, there's a lot of synergy with Kragnos. you know, like in this edition for Kruleboyz. And he's just kind of, I don't know, like he's just kind of good. Like he's just kind of good. He has a worse save, but a better ward. So that's good because in 3rd edition, he had no ward, but a 2-up save, I think. But he ignored spells. So Bolt Boys would just murder him. Right? Bolt Boys would just pop him off like 1 round of shooting and Kragnos would be dead. In 3rd, and so now that's no longer true, although I don't think that would be true. But like, for example, Gut Rippas would just 1 turn kill a Kragnos if he was last edition's Kragnos. This edition's Kragnos probably stands up, or at least has a better chance to stand up. So I don't know, I kind of want to put him in A just because of how synergistic he is. It's like if I see him on the table now, I'm not surprised. That's how I feel about Kragnos right now. It's like I see a Kragnos list and I'm like, okay, this, in Kruleboyz anyway, is probably not optimal, but I bet you it's still, like, I'm gonna look at it. Like, here's a legit list. Vulture Boss and 2 Vulture Bosses in Kragnos. You just play 2 Vulture Bosses in Kragnos. The end. Right? And then after that, you play, like, you know, Reinforced Bolt Boys, some Gut Rippas. Right? So, thanks for the prime. Hype train incoming. So I don't know. What do you guys think? B, A? I'm kind of stuck. His attack profile isn't great. That's true. 3d6 charge. Well, you really have to lean into it. I think I'm gonna stick him at B. I don't think he's quite A tier in Kruleboyz. I think he might be A tier in some other destruction armies. Like Ogres might really like him. Iron Jaws, I think he's better. Like Aaron Newbaum is running Kragnos and Ragers, just a whole bunch of Ragers. So it's like 3d6 charge, first strike, anti-monster, right? Like womp womp. You're gonna smash some faces, I'm sure, with that. Gonna catch people off guard, guaranteed. Okay, Break a Boss. Do I think Break a Boss is an auto include? No. Yeah, he's really good in Ogres. Yeah, exactly. Too much for what he does? Yeah, I mean, I think he's happy at B. I'm just, to be honest, B tier is where Kragnos belongs. B tier is where Kragnos belongs. Kragnos belongs, like, in lists that are still good and fun and interesting and different, but not like the meta, not like the list. So I think I'm really happy with Kragnos where he's at right now. So Break a Boss at A tier. He's just really good. I don't think he's an auto include, but he's really good. Like when I play my opponents, I look at him and I say it does what it says on the box. He's a troll, so he heals, and he's got 2 big clubs, so he smashes, and he smashes good. Right? He's got good rend, no tricks. You know, lots of dice, good rend, good damage. So I think he's just a solid A tier. There's not much to say about him. Love the model, love the concept, love the war scroll. Didn't get to play him a ton in 3rd. He was the first non-Dominion box Kruleboy that I bought. He was the first model that I bought where I was like, I want this model in particular, and got this guy, because I kept losing to my wife playing Stormcast Eternals. I lost to her like all the time, and then I did the math. I calculated the points of the Dominion box, and Stormcast had more points, so I was like, well, I'm gonna add some points to my list with this Break a Boss, and still lost to her every time. Cool. Gobsprak. I think Gobsprak's probably A tier this edition. I see him pop up from time to time in people's lists. The thing with Gobsprak is just like all these other wizards in this edition right now, where he is he's a 2 cast, 1 drop, which is good. And then, you know, like he's fast. He has a good War Scroll spell, like a really good War Scroll spell, dealing 5 mortal wounds on average to a monster is like good. Like 5 mortal wounds is 5 mortal wounds, you know? From range too, I think it's like an 18-inch range. I should just pull up the thing, right? That makes sense, right? I feel like I know this stuff pretty well already. Kruleboyz in particular. Gobsprak's pretty early. Yeah, I mean, 12 inches is pretty fast, right? He does have a bad save, but his high health pool really helps. That's one thing I like about the Vultures. Yeah, and I mean, like, his Screamin' Mandrake ability isn't very good. He might be overcosted. See, like, the thing with him at 3, he's 380, right? Isn't he just stupid expensive? I haven't looked at him in a little while. I'm just going to pull up the points on my other monitor here. Yeah, he's too expensive at 380. Like, he is too expensive at 380. Considering, like, someone like Scragrot, who's also, like, a 1 cast or a 2 cast, you know, with some utility. He has Fangs of the Bad Moon, right? Like, is 220. So, Gobsprek's probably, like, 340 in that range. Hey, how you doing? But I still think he's A tier. I still think that he's good. I think that, like I said, he's fast and, you know, he's still, like, scary. So I don't think he's situationally good. I think if I see, like, a Gobsprek list, I'm like, okay. Do Kruleboyz want to be super quick as well? Everybody wants to be super quick as well. Everybody wants to be super quick. There's a lot that relies on being fast this edition. Like, battle tactics. Battle tactics are really hard, right? Fine, thanks. Tactics are really hard right now. So, like, take their land. Or, yeah, take what's theirs, I think is what it's called. Take the flanks, seize the center, and then the destruction one in particular, where you have to get another unit into combat. I think it's called the cunning maneuver or something like that. The destruction specific one that isn't time to get stuck in. I think it's the cunning maneuver. You'll have to let me know. Here, just hoping the stuff I actually have is half decent. Haha, what do you have? Let me know. I'll tell you. Probably. It's probably fine. Anyway, so yeah, I think Gobsprek's good. Same with the Vulture Boss. I don't think they're S tier. I don't think that you auto-include them every time. I'm not sure if there are auto-includes in Kruleboyz right now. Yeah, there probably is. I don't know if there is. Interesting. Got Rippas? Monster Killers, I guess. We'll get there. But the Kill Boss is good at A tier, right? Like, he just kind of... He does a good job. Slippery Scumbag makes him a lot better because just being able to retreat before the combat phase and being able to retreat his 12-inch move is good. Being on a 4-up save is fine at 14 health. It's much better than being on a 5-up save. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't throw... Like, he throws more damage. But again, it's like... Unmodified Charge Roll 4-up Rampage is really good. The fact that you could, like this is what I was talking about with Kragnos, right? Like, what you're doing is you're abusing this Vulture Boss mechanic. You can only do 1 charge a turn, so you're going to charge in the dude with Slippery Scumbag first, and then blow something up, hopefully, and then on a 3-up, you just fly away. Or you power through and just fly away, right? Kill Bow is S. And that's really strong, and then you do it a second time and blow, like, you're dealing so many mortal wounds. So then you just blow something else up, and then that one gets stuck in combat. Right? But you could also give it the 5-up ward artifact now, right? So it's like the second, because if the Slippery Scum, anyway, it's like you can abuse how strong this Rampage is. Commanding View sucks. It's too bad that it's 12 inches. It's too bad that it's got Rippas. It should be infantry. His thing should say infantry, but this isn't a War Scroll review. We're just talking about tiers. So, I mean, A tier, solid. Now, here's the thing. Is a Sludge Raker an auto-include in every list that you make in Kruleboyz? I think so. I think he's just an auto-include. Our first true S tier. Can I see a list with no Sludge Raker? I don't think I can. The buff is so good, and the way that this meta is playing, like the way that this edition is playing, it's like we're all fighting in the middle, right? Like, fundamentally, there's something big going on in the center. Everyone's playing these big, like, reinforced infantry blocks because the buffs are just there. The buffs just exist, right? Buffing infantry is the way to go now. 3-inch range means that all that reinforced model, the bulk of models are all getting their attacks in. There's no more battle shock, so you lose that. Right, so you can, like, reinforce safely without losing 10 and then battle shock the other 10 running, because that used to feel really bad. Cavalry have companion now, so they're not the obvious choice for all the buffs. So it's like, yeah, it's all about the infantry bricks right now, which is probably good for the game, to be honest. It's probably a good thing for the game. So I think because of that fact, because reinforced gut rippers are S tier, then the Sludge Raker is S tier. You're gonna take him every single time. He also buffs like infantry, so you can also use like monster killers and stuff. Like sometimes I've sent in monster killers essentially as a screen against my opponent to screen out my gut rippers. So if I know that that's what I'm doing, like they'll get all the buffs, the +1 to save, venom encrusted weapons, and the Sludge Raker buff. And then if I can strike them first, or if it's my turn, right? Like they'll actually pump out like really good damage, and they can spike and stuff too. Cool. Swamp Boss Scumdrack I think is A tier. I think if he's your second Sludge Raker, I think you're doing good. The problem with the Hobgrots doing crit mortals is they have no staying power, so if they get hit with any kind of damage at range or with spells, they have no save, they have no ward, so they just sort of melt, right? So, and as soon as you start losing the volume of dice that you're throwing with those buffs, then it all kind of falls apart. So you just can't really do it. You need those reinforced gut rippers. However, you could do a reinforced brick of gut rippers and then a different swamp and then a different Sludge Raker with the Hobgrots. So that's I think that's a legit list. I think the double Sludge Raker list is a legit list. By the way, I also think the double Vulture list is a legit list. And yeah, but I think that the Scumdrack is good as your second. So does that make him B tier? No, I think you could just play him. I think if someone's like, you know what, I'm not going to go with the Gut Rippers and the Sludge Raker, I'm going to go with the Scumdrack and the Hobgrots. And instead, I'm going to do this other thing instead, you know, with the points, like, oh, I don't know, Kragnos, or like, you know, I think it's legit. Like 2 Vultures and a Scumdrack, I think could be a fine list. So I'll stick him at A. Yeah, Scumdrack's A. He's really good. Kill Boss on Great Gnash Tooth. So 3 up save, 10 wounds, 10 move. So his sort of like meat and feet are good. Right? He doesn't suffer anymore from being a 10 wound. He's in 3rd edition he would suffer. Adding to the control score doesn't feel like it matters. I don't think that's how we're playing. What we're doing is we're just like finding openings with infantry and grabbing objectives that our opponent left open. That's how I feel. That's R as you gets. While this unit is contesting an objective you do not control, add 1 to hit rolls for combat attacks made by friendly Kruleboyz infantry units wholly within 12 of this unit. So he gives all-out attack. Adding control score feels quite mid this edition. To be honest, I don't really have a strong opinion on this because I haven't seen it matter. It sort of feels like I think you're probably right in that it feels mid, just because they're so small that whoever has their feet on it, it's more like there's not enough room for us all. Like, I think control score would matter more if we still had the bigger objectives, right? Because then it's like you have feet and I have feet, and so having control score means that it's still mine, which is interesting, right? They shrunk the objectives and then made a mechanic that is weaker this edition. They could probably make the objectives bigger if they wanted to make control score more relevant, right? Think about it. You're zoning out some objective. Okay, you have 10 feet on it. Cool. I teleport a unit that has 5 models in it, and I can teleport onto the objective and be 9 away from you, right? And so I'm also theoretically 10, but I cast a spell on them that gave them +1 to their control score. So they're 11. And so now I take it from you. Like, that seems more relevant, but adding control score just doesn't seem like it matters. It can be useful, but killing other units with IDK, yeah, just like killing things and then you actually having the toes on the objective over your opponent is the way to go. So that ability doesn't feel very well, or doesn't feel very good. Adding +1 to hit rolls, like, meh. It's like we're kind of a mortal wound melee army. So, like, +1 to hit is good. I guess it's good with the monster killers, which is what you'd be using this with. But the problem is that he's 220 points and a drop, and I just can't see it. I can't see. Here's the problem with Heroes 2 this edition. I can't see a case where you're like, oh, this guy's a drop and is better than like this other guy, right? Because he also costs a drop. I think he's F tier, unfortunately. Yep. Okay, let's see. 2 Sludge Rakers, good. 4 Marsh Crawlers, okay. Like, you just need 1, I guess. 2 times Dominion sets. Okay, so that's like some... Okay. Plus 3 extra Shamans. Okay, so the only thing that you're missing, the GNGR noob, is Monster Killers. And a Vulture. So if you wanted to get something to add to your list, right? 3D printing some Monster Killers and getting a Vulture would be good. Okay. So, also, unfortunately, I think the kill boss on foot is also F tier. The foot boss, I think he's F tier. I can't see, like, he has the same kill. Like, these guys they have a huge war scroll problem where they're same thing as the Marsh Crawler from last edition. They're adding +1 to hit when it doesn't help us that much. +1 to hit just doesn't matter. It's not a good buff. So the Nashtooth gives it without having to spend a command point, which is good. But the kill boss, you have to use a command point to get a buff you don't really want, to then have the kill boss kick in and give a buff that you don't really want. I've done the math. The kill boss adds like 2 or 3 damage. He'll do like 5 damage the entire game. And he's not a drop, right? But he's 130 points. So it's like a unit of monster killers does everything that he does better than he does. They add more damage, they're more health, they're more toes on objective, they teleport better, they take venom crusted weapons, they take all the buffs way better, they deal more damage, everything that you could possibly do with the kill boss. On foot, monster killers does better for cheaper. So there's no situation where you take him. None. He fits in a regiment. He doesn't cost a drop, just like Monster Killers. You never take a kill boss on foot. I don't think. Oh. Whoa. Also feels like small hero wizards and priests are often too cheap and valuable compared to regular small heroes with less utility for a drop. Yep, for a drop for sure. He's not a drop, but again, like there's nothing that you could do to make me take this war scroll. Unless he was so cheap that sometimes he just happened to fall into like that exact amount of points. Like, oh, this list is so good, but it's got 60 points missing. Oh, a kill boss is 60 points. No, but the thing with it certainly made worse with manifestations this season, right? But the thing is that like spells have so much utility, right? And the spell is just often better than what the foot hero can do. It's also an unbind, which is also has value. You know, manifestations make it worse. But the kill boss, like there's nothing you could do. The kill boss, unfortunately, I think, is just sitting on the shelf this edition. Yeah. Am I talking game-wide or army-wide? Well, I don't know. It's just like the foot heroes really have to do something useful. If they're only going to get to do one thing, you know, it has to be actually something good. Like, they're not always bad, but they struggle to be good. Things like Lookout Sir and all that help, but I think that they need to attach themselves more directly to units. Personally. Something. I don't know. Swamp Call of Shaman, I think, is A tier. I think you can definitely take him. I think he's strong. I think his +1 to cast is really good. Just like a built-in +1 to cast without any enhancements. You know, and then like with the artifact of power, like if he's 2 casts both at +1, like that's quite strong. You know, and then if he's standing at a place of power, you know, like suddenly it's like, you know, if I'm standing with him at a place of power at deployment, I will cast Kronspine in my opponent's turn because I need 7 on the dice. That makes me happy. So he's really good. Also, his ability to give +1 to save is really good on a 3-up. Right? Like we are very soft, and so being able to give like our Gut Rip is +3 to save in a turn, like being able to save stack is really good. That Mystic Shield spell that we have, Mork's Cunning, I think might be our best spell. It's just like, okay, like you just get to do it every turn. It's easy, it's great. A tier. Merc Knob. Merc Knob is F tier. For the same reason that the other guys are. He costs a drop. Last season, he needed to have the hero keyword removed to be good. This season, it's even more the case. Right? Both. So it's like I'm never taking him. Like my drops are like, look at all the choices I have up in A tier and S tier for drops. All of these guys are heroes. So like they're never gonna get picked. Look at the options. The fact that he's 5 control score, again, control score just doesn't seem to matter all that much. And what, you're gonna teleport him, he's gonna stand on an objective by himself? It's like, no, he's not. He's just gonna get killed. So that doesn't feel good. Then it's 0 control. Right? And then his Breath of the Mire Drake ability is pretty weak. The range is small. If it should be like a 9-inch range for 1 mortal wound. He should just be like a tower that stands there that just slowly hurts your opponent. Then maybe. But no, not for a drop. There's no way. Sorry, Merc Knob, F tier. Bolt Boys, I think, are A tier. I don't think they're auto-include. I do not think that they are auto-include. I think that you can definitely play a list without them. I think that they're good. I think they're going to be really good in this season. I think we need to reassess next season how good they are. My initial sort of thought of them was that they were going to be good at clearing screens and shooting down like weak models, right, with their hasty shot. But with priority target, their aim shot is turning out to be quite good. Being 2s and 2s with 2 random 2 damage, even without crit auto wound, feels awesome. Right? So I'm really liking that. Very consistent damage. You know, it's 14 potential damage on 2/2/2. Right? So like you're getting like your 6, 7, 8 damage consistently. So, and people are still making the mistake of putting all their stuff in their general's regiment. It's like, oh, I'm a Trug player, and Trug is my general, so all of my trolls are in my general's regiment. It's like, okay, right? Like, sure, I'm just gonna, what, do I want to pick off your Dankhold first? Do I want to focus your Trug first? I know that they heal, but I'm just gonna like, you know, deal you, like counter shoot you and just deal them a whole bunch of damage, and then just hope that they roll bad on their healing rolls. Right? And so I weaken them before melee, and then I fight them and kill them before they fight back and heal. Right? Like it's a way of doing stuff. Like being able to pick off like 1 rock gut every shooting attack has value. Just being like, well, bam, right? Like, I'm gonna take out 1 rock gut. Even after all your 3-up save and your 5-up ward, I'm still gonna remove a model. That's how you deal with rock guts. You gotta start taking 1 model at a time away, right? Like, shooting is still really strong in this game. So yeah, A tier. Gut Rippers, I think, are S tier. I don't think you could really make a list that's competitive and viable without rock guts. Or sorry, without Gut Rippers. A reinforced brick of them in particular is really, really, really good. Being able to give them Venom Encrusted Weapons and the Sludge Raker buff, like it's 41 dice. Like for those of you that don't know the math, if you're doing 41 dice, where a third of them, okay, are dealing 2 mortal wounds. 27 mortal wounds on average. 27 mortal wounds on average. So if you have like, let's say that you have 20 wounds, okay, and you have a 5-up ward. So a 5-up ward means that there's 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s are fail states. So there's 4 fail states. So it means that you have to deal 30 mortal wounds worth of damage, right? To a 20 wound monster or whatever with a 5-up ward to kill it. So gut rippers are killing 20 wounds. Like, how about 15 wounds with a 4-up ward? Gut rippers are still killing it. Like, they're in that bracket where it's like, oh, like they're dealing enough damage where if you have both of those buffs and it's your turn and you're looking at something and you're like, I want that like Ushuran to die. If they're fully buffed, they can do it. They can just be like, yum, gone. And then with help from like your Boltboys and other things to get in there and do what you, and like, you know, to help with the damage, like, holy jeez. They slap. They slap. Unfortunately, I think Hobgrots are probably F tier. They can no longer run and shoot. I don't care about their scrap bang ability. Like, it's fine. It's end of any turn, so they have to survive combat. If this was in the combat phase where they retreat before they fight, they'd be awesome. But it's at the end of the turn, they have to basically die. And then it's 1 mortal wound and they get to move 5 inches. They're 100 points. Boltboys are 110 points. They're not F tier, they're B tier. If you're taking a Scumdrek. If you're taking a Scumdrek, then they're good. If you're not taking a Scumdrek, then they're not. I think that's it. Can you make a fun meme list with Hobgrots? Well, it's just... I mean, if you wanted to make a fun meme list, it would be Scumdrek with a reinforced brick and then two more units of them. And they're just going to be your sneaky targets. Right? You're like, oh, like I'm running 2 Hobgrots instead. So I do like the double sludge. I do it like a double sludge list. Where it's like you're doing reinforced, gut rippers, reinforced Hobgrots, 2 units of Hobgrots to teleport around, infantry, and then for whatever like whatever wizards and other heroes that you could fit in the list. But that's what I would do. So you're just teleporting 10 Hobgrots onto objectives your opponent leaves open, hopefully. But B tier. Kill bows on foot, lol. No, F tier. Kill boss on foot's F tier. You never take them. So like, there's no way. You would just be better it'd be better to have more Hobgrots. It'd be better just to have another unit of like this other bad unit, right? Like another Hobgrot unit is better and saves 30 points, right? 3 more Boltboys is better and saves 20 points. Right, monster killers are better and save 10 points. Like, there's just no scenario like where the kill boss on foot. That's why he's F tier. I think the Marsh Krala is B tier. Let's talk about the Marsh Krala a bit. So run and charge is a powerful ability. Okay, run and charge is a powerful ability. It also is redeploy and countercharge. I think that's quite a good ability. The reason that I don't particularly like it is because I think that that's not the kind of army that we're playing. And he's too expensive. He's 190 points, and he still has the same problem that he did last edition, where he's stuck between like 5 different roles. He's not particularly tanky, right? He has let me just pull him up really quick. He has a 4-up save and 10 wounds, and he heals at the start of the turn. So it's like, but he's still on a 4-up with 10 wounds, so he's not particularly tanky, right? His aura has been reduced to 12 inches, so he has to kind of be in the middle. He's slow at 6 inches, so he sort of has a hard time, like, getting in position. I guess he could just, like, stand next to the gut rippers and just flank for them. He's, like, he's not a hero, which is good, so he's not a drop. But I just don't really value run and charge 190 points. Right? I just don't value it that highly. The only time I think that you take him right now is if you're like, I'm going to run 2 bricks of Gut Rippas or whatever, and I'm going to like be really aggressive. Like if you're like, I'm going for a really aggressive style, then I think you do it. But that's not how I'm finding this army, right? We're not like a push, push, push army. We're like a, like, pull you apart in all directions, force you to like go into space that you didn't want to go into before, and then like do weird like move, like if you come to get me in your back line, then I'm just gonna sneak away, and if you don't come get me in your back line, then I'm gonna get into your heroes, so I'm forcing you to like react to me and pull you apart. And then in other parts of the map, I'm focus firing, like I'm taking unfair fights, like I'm baiting away your big beefy guy, or I'm baiting away your stuff to your cavalry to come chase me to take your objective back, to take your objectives back, or to stay at home and zone me out, right? To keep your objectives. That's another option too, and that works just fine. And then we're just gonna like take unfair fights. I'm gonna hit you with a Break Boss and buffed up Gut Rippas and a Sludge Raker, right? And a unit of Monster Killers, and I'm gonna shoot you, and I'm gonna hit you with a Vulture Boss while you're chasing shadows off in the dark. That's how I'm finding this army is playing, or at least that's how I'm playing them. So I think that you can do like a run and charge thing and play them differently than that, but I just don't think it's like kind of the way the army, like the meta, right? Like the better way to play them is sort of how I'm thinking about it. So that puts him at a B tier for me. Killbow's B tier if they have lots of monsters. If it's a monster meta, right? If they have lots of monsters, then you can take 2 of these. Problem is, 2 of them is 320 points. And I think you need 2 of them. I don't think that one of them is good enough. I think it's the same exact problem that we had last edition, where they just don't deal enough damage on their own. They only still have 2 attacks, and right, it's a 4 up to hit, right? So it's like, man, like right away you're losing one of your dice, so now you have 1 die to get through a 2-up wound and a 2 rend, right? So it's like there's still 2 more rolls where you can roll a 1, which is not super likely, but that's still once a game, right? Once a game you're gonna fail this, and then the 2 rend is good, the 3 rend is better, and the 6 damage is good. But again, I think you just need 2 of them, and you're like gonna focus fire them. You're like, I have 4 dice now, right? On 4s and 2s, so it's like I'm gonna deal my 12 damage to you, right? I'm gonna like, because like 12 damage, 12 is a magic number when it comes to killing monsters. Aren't a lot of monsters still at 12? Yeah, it's a war machine, so it's not a drop, but it's just really expensive. It's just really expensive for only 2 shots. They need to come down in points. Like, imagine if this was a reinforced unit. How much would you want to pay for this reinforced unit? Like, more than Bolt Boys? Right? So like 260? Right? Not 340. They gotta come down. Until they come down, they're gonna be like only good if you're like, oh, like every other player's a Gargant player in my meta. Okay, then run a reinforce, then run 2 of them. Right? And just win. Right? Should be about 150, 160, I think. So you think that they're fairly priced, or for a reinforced unit? If they're 80 points each, that's too cheap. Like, they gotta be 100 points or more for sure. They gotta be more than 100 points. At 80 points, I think that they're like so cheap, like way undercosted, I think. Last edition, they only had 1 attack. Now they have 2, so that's like better. And they have a crazy good range. They're just too cheap. I want them to come down so I can play them. Monster Killers are S tier. Yep. Monster Killers are S tier. You take Reinforced Gut Rippas, that's S tier. You take a Sludge Raker, that's S tier. And then you're taking Monster Killers. That's another S tier. You're at least taking 1. Monster Killers are really, really strong. I want to play Killbows. I want to play Killbows. You know, like I do. But they're just too expensive. They'll be good when they find, if they find the right point cost. But yeah, Monster Killers are S tier. They deal a lot of damage for their point cost. They have a lot of wounds for their point cost. Their anti-monster stuff is insane. Their anti-monster is like it's insane. Let me just pull it up here so I don't make any mistakes. Like, when I explain this to people, it's kind of crazy. So first of all, they actually have a rend. Okay. And so against a monster, they have 2 rend. Okay. So now, because they have 2 rend, suddenly all-out attack on them is actually not bad. So if you really need to sink something, okay, if you really need to deal some damage and they get to fight, 3-3-2-1 with 21 dice and 6 upper mortals is legit. You can actually put some damage into something. Like, you'll deal like, you know, like 3 or 4 mortal wounds, but then with 2 rend, you're hopefully going to get, because you're probably going to get like another 5 or 6 damage, maybe even 7 or 8 damage if you're lucky with that extra rend. So you can like kind of deal your like, you know, 8 to 10 sort of damage if you're rolling okay, but you're gonna deal like 6 or 7 anyway. To give them strike last is on a 2-up if they're injured, or a 3-up if they're not. A 2-up strike last, right? Just hit them with bull poise, right? Injure them. 2-up strike last. That's really, really strong. Especially if we're trying to take unfair fights, right? Because hopefully we're trying to pile in with a bunch of stuff. That's our style. So if that's what's happening, then they get strike last. Or on the flanks, I found it's like giving like a big pig -1, or with the fact that they can't, they have to strike last you, just means that we're getting value, right? We're getting value. We're gonna deal damage no matter what, right? And then the 2-up ignore the rampage is also crazy that it's on a 2-up. There's a lot of good rampages, and people, I'm not sure if you know this, but people take the best rampages that they can in their armies, right? They don't take the bad rampages. They take the units with really awesome rampages, and then you just like, nope. No, sir, you do not. That does not happen. Really good. Yeah, I want to play a kill bow. I want it to come down in cost. I love what it does to your opponent's head, where they're like, I can't go over there. You're like, you're right, because I'm just gonna deal 6 damage, and then I'm gonna counter shoot you and still do. No, because you can't counter shoot. You can though. It's hard to think about. Anyway, but like strike last and no rampage, like these guys are crazy. 120 points, crit mortals, 21 attacks, 14 wounds. They're slow, 5-up save, right? But they have a musician and a champion, right? So I don't know, rally these things when they start to die. They have a lot of value per model, right? Because each model throws 3 dice. So anyway, what do you think of my tier list? Let me know in the comments below. Hit me up on Discord. Let me know what you think. Tell me where you think I'm right. Tell me where you think I'm wrong. And like, subscribe. Wow.